Hello, my name's Simon Taylor and I'm here at Surrey Hills Butchers. Today I'm going to be showing you how to break down a venison carcass. If you'd like to see any other butchery related videos, please just make a comment below and I'll see what I can do. If you could like and subscribe to this channel, that's just going to push me to do more and more videos. So let's get the venison out and get underway. So we'll start with the venison. We're going to need a sharp knife. I'm wiping the knife along the steel at about a 15-degree angle, just to keep a nice sharp edge. We're also going to be using a saw today. Obviously, it's very important that we stay safe. And to start, we're going to remove the fat by the top of the leg, ease that away, and then I'll be cutting into the meat underneath. There'll be a better angle of this once we turn the venison over. Cut through the belly section, make a mark under the shoulder and join those lines together. Again, cutting through that meat, we want the saw to cut through the bone, not the meat. And that's our first primal section, our venison belly or venison breast. Now from this angle you'll see slightly better the fat being removed at the top of the leg, and then the meat from underneath. And then cutting again through that belly, making a mark underneath the shoulder, and joining those lines together. Again, making sure to cut through the meat so that we're ready for the saw. Our first primal section, the belly or the breast of venison. Next up, we're going to remove the hindquarter. At the bottom of the lumbar section here, I'm looking for the first straight vertebrae, which is just here. Once I've found that, I'm going to make a nice straight incision down to that vertebrae. On larger animals, this can be a bit more clear. Sometimes you have to clean it up a bit to see where you're going. Once you've marked down either side, a good way to check when you turn this over is you're looking for the flattest part after the rump. Make a cut through there, and then your haunch section will just pull away. And that's our second primal, the haunches. Now we're going to split the loin and the shoulders. I'm going to count down 5 bones and make a mark. Same the other side. This time we'll come down, cutting onto the top of the shoulder blade. And the other side we can marry that up, again cutting through as much meat as possible. So we're sawing through just the bone. Saw this down. And there we have our venison cut into primals. Here's the haunch. We have our lovely loin of venison, the shoulder section, and the breast and belly. So now we're going to move on to how we break these primals into something a little easier to cook. First I'm going to mark down between the hip bone. Sometimes that knife will go through, other times you just need a bit of help from the saw. Now I'm going to push back the fillet that's by the tail muscle and slightly get my knife underneath the joint. Once I've eased that a little bit, I'll use pressure just to pop the joint open. And then we just need to follow the tailbone down with the tip of the knife. And we can remove the leg from the tailbone. Now we'll repeat that the other side. So again, loosening off that fillet muscle, just getting underneath that joint. Apply some pressure, like so. Opens it out for you. And then again, just follow that tailbone around until that bone becomes free. Now we keep these bones for stock, so keep yourself a stock bag to one side. And now we need to remove the hip bone. This is a bit of a process, so I've sped this up a little. Essentially, you're following the contours of the bone with your knife. There's a ball joint in the middle. Once you've got around that, it will free up slightly. It's always a good idea to free one end of the bone. It gives you a handle. As you can see, it's quite a long bone, a few curves. So again, it's just about following the shape with the tip of your knife. Then we'll remove the tendon. Just saw off the knuckle there. Now we'll roll the leg just so it's nice and shapely for roasting. I'm going to use a butcher's knot. It's going to come around the back of the string, so it's hooked on. I'm going to loop underneath and come back through. That is just essentially creating a knot that slips, and it's hooked on at the back. So it's a slip knot. Because it's a slip knot, we can loosely tighten, and then we can pull away that excess string, tightening it around the leg. Then we just need to secure that knot. So any form of knot over this will do, but really we're just tying a knot over the slip knot so that it can't slip out. And we'll repeat that process just to get the nice shape for a roasting joint. And then we'll repeat the process on the second leg. Little piece of meat on the top of the H bone. Trim away anything that doesn't look right. And then again, following that hip bone around. Again, there's a ball joint in the middle. Once that's away, you'll get a bit more flex to it. And then if you can free one end of the bone, it'll create you a handle to get a hold of and follow the rest of the bone. And again, you can see the shape of the bone. Just follow that around until it's free. Again, we'll remove the tendon, cut the knuckle off, and then tie this leg up. We could obviously completely boneless, butterfly, make smaller joints, steaks. And if that's something you need to see, let me know and I'll do that for you. Again, it's round the back of the string, a knot that slips over the top, and then pulling the tension on that to get that nice and tight. I've just spun the string around there to create a knot over the top, but again, it's just a knot over the slip knot so that it doesn't come out. Pop a few more strings on here, same process again, around, knot that slips, and away with the tension, secured over. Now on this piece, because we've removed the hip bone, the rump section at the front here, we could cut that away and we could do it as a boneless joint, or we could cut steaks from there, making the leg a little bit smaller. But if you want a bigger roast, you could leave it whole. You could also cut these in half, slice down and then saw through the bone. You could, of course, completely butterfly them and have them boneless. Now we'll move on to the loin. What we're going to do is make a mark down the back, just so that we're able to separate our two loins. And then we're going to follow the rib cage down until we get to the boneless section of ribs by the lumbar section. We're going to trim up these pencil fillets at the top. They can get a bit messy, so we'll just tidy them up a little, just skimming away the top, but leaving as much meat as possible. And then once we've got them tidied away, we'll just scoop those out onto the little fin bones at the bottom of the lumbar section, and pull those pencil fillets out. There's a little bit of trim off the side, which we'll keep for mincing. And you have these really tender little fillets. Cook very, very quickly, stir fries, or just rolled in a pan and heated. And then we'll get under those fin bones, join it up where we came down the rib cage, and follow the bones to remove the saddle eye fillet. So this is essentially a boneless steak, which we're pulling out here, and we'll completely trim this, which is the classic way to prepare a venison loin. And this is much bigger than those little inner fillets we've just taken out, and they make for better steaks. Now we repeat the process the other side, coming down that rib cage to the empty section there, getting underneath those fin bones, and then following that all the way around the carcass, just keeping nice and tight to the bones until you free it away at the bottom. There we go. You can cut this centerpiece in half for stock. You can take the trim from in between the bones for mince. Again, using as much of the carcass as possible. just sliding down the side of either bone, scooping out that little piece of meat, which will go for mince. And then, as I say, you can run the saw through the middle of these bones and you can add this to your stock pot. Again, getting as much from the animal as possible. Now we're just going to trim up these saddle eye fillets, and we can essentially pull the muscle away from the trim. So we just ease that back, helping it with the knife where we need to. Just being very careful not to mark the saddle eye. It's a very tender, very popular piece. Well worth putting some effort into. And just peel away that top section that covers it. See, I'm just easing it away, cutting away any pieces I need to with a knife. Most will pull free. Once this piece is away, trim off any excess, but do keep as much fat as possible. We're keen to keep as much fat as we can in this mince because venison can be very lean, so the fat is a bonus. Now I'm just going to get underneath the silver skin. Notice I loosened a piece at the top, and then you can just run your knife against it to pull it away. Down the bottom by the sort of ribeye section, it does start to intertwine with the meat a little bit, so just be a little bit careful here where you take it out. Again, anything silver skin, take away, anything meat we keep. Again, getting underneath that first bit of silver skin, loosening that away with the tip of the knife. Trying not to put any pressure into the meat itself, but instead put the pressure onto the silver skin. Do be very careful when you're pointing a knife towards yourself that you're not putting too much pressure in, and just ease that silver skin off the top until it's nice and clean. Any other little pieces trim away, but then you've got your beautiful saddle eye fillet. Doesn't take much cooking at all, a very intense sear, and you've got a beautiful piece of meat. So again, we'll repeat the process the other side, pulling away the top section. Anything that needs a knife to ease it out. A little bit of trim from the side, and then definitely keeping the rest for mince, because again, we need that fat content. And similarly, we're just going to take away the silver skin from this piece. So again, it's just about being careful with your knife, getting underneath each piece and then sliding the knife along. If you feel your knife going into the meat at any point, just stop yourself, start again, because you really do want to protect that lovely muscle. And there we go. 2 beautifully clean saddle eye fillets. You can cut these into medallions, you can roast them whole, you can make venison Wellingtons, but it's a beautiful tender cut of meat. Now moving on to the shoulders, we're going to mark down the shoulder again, much like we did with the loin, so that when we remove the shoulder it separates easily. We're just going to follow the rib cage along. Again, tip of the knife. The more we use the tip of the knife, the less mess we make. We just follow that down onto the bones. Again, this is a bit time consuming, so just make sure you keep the knife going up against the bones. Keep going round, follow the contours of the bones until the meat is removed. And again, when you find that line that you cut down the back, it'll separate easily. A little bit of trim away. And then anything fat like this, we've got to be careful. Up in the shoulder there is a gland. You can see the gland in the middle of the fat. We want to keep the fat but remove the gland. Glands can be a little bit bitter and we don't want that tainting any of our trim, but we do want the fat. So we'll keep the fat from there to add with our mince and then remove the gland. Keep the fat, the gland goes away. A little bit of trim from the neck fillet there. To remove the shank, the foreshank, go in between the 2 joints there. That's the tip, the V of the bones that meet there. Make a mark in between them. Once you've removed some of the meat there, you're able to pop the bone out and follow the joint round. Now we could roast the shoulder like so. We could save these 4 knuckles and do them in a stew, or we can take the trim off them for mince. There's not a massive amount of meat on these, and they do take a little bit of cooking. So I like to remove these for mince. Again, we'll keep the bone for stock. But again, nice and easy, follow the bone, tip of the knife. This meat essentially peels away from the bone. Once you've taken that away, bone goes in the stock. There are some sinews here, so just make sure you trim them off before you put them in the mince. And that's ready for mincing, bone for stock. As I say, we can keep the shoulders as they are, or we can trim them further. Same again on this neck shoulder. I'm following the bones down, keeping nice and tight to the structure of the bone, getting as much meat as possible, and then cleaning up. So any pieces that don't look right, trim away, get in between that V joint of the shoulder and break it through. Again, trimming the meat away from the foreshank, and then trimming that up of any gristles, and the rest will go in our mince. Keep a sharp knife, working on the meat, the bone, the block. This will dull your knife, so make sure you do keep giving it a little sharpen. Again, we've got that piece of fat up in the shoulder, the gland in the middle, which we don't want, but the fat that we do. Keep that fat. Now we're going to bone this shoulder out. So the first bone, if we get along the scapula, so this is the shoulder blade, so we just lay down onto that bone and follow it along with nice wipes of the knife until it's nice and opened out. Once that's opened out, we can follow it around the edges. There's a fin bone here which is quite tricky to get around, so take your time and keep moving the meat around until you can free the bone out. As you can see, the top is flat, and then you have that extra bit underneath it which pokes out. And then we've got a nice straight bone here, like a cartoon bone. We can just cut straight down onto it. It's got sort of a straight middle and a lump either end, so nice and easy to follow with the knife. As per usual, if you can free up one end, that will give you something to hold on to, and then you can use it to hold as you bone out the rest. And this will give us a boneless shoulder. We often use the shoulder for dice meats, or we roll them up for roasting. Again, while you're here, if there's any gristles, any silver skins, we can remove them. The thinner the silver skin, the more it will dissolve in cooking, but if it's a thick piece, it's always a good idea just to remove while you can. Next shoulder, same again. I'll cut down onto that scapula, the shoulder blade, just cutting down, wiping along the bone, following its edges around. Loosening that joint at the top will give you a bit of freedom and a bit more movement in the bone. And again, getting down onto that fin bone at the bottom, keeping pushing it around till it's out. Same again with the straighter bone, getting down onto it, removing like so. I'm going to trim this one out a little, remove the gristles. I'm going to roll it around into a shoulder cushion. You can get a nice round shape. Again, we're going to use that knot that we talked about, the slip knot. Any slip knot will do. It doesn't even need to be a slip knot. You can just tie this into position any way you like, as long as you keep the shape. A slip knot will give you a bit more control on that shape. And when you're making something like a shoulder cushion, it is useful to have that tension. But we just make it a nice round joint that's ready for a slow cooker or a stew. And then this will just shred up after cooking. So there we go, nice circular joint, 2 boneless shoulders. Moving on to the breast and belly, what we're going to do here is lay back the meat that's on top of the bones. There's also some cartilage that runs at the top of the bones, so just be aware that you can cut through the cartilage. Bone not so much, but if you push hard enough on the knife, so be careful you do take that cartilage out. Then we're just going to run the knife along the bones, freeing the meat away. Again, if the rib cage is nice and clean, we could take this out and we could use it for trim. If it isn't, if you've got anything that needs tidying up, just cut that away. Again, if it's clean enough, this would be good for the stock pot. If it's not, then set it to one side. But we remove the meat from the bone, trimming away anything we don't want. And then with the breast, we have a nice piece of fat at the top. Again, there is another gland, and we want to make sure that we remove that gland. Again, they can be a bit bitter. So we take the gland away, again, saving any fat that we can. Fat is much needed in venison, being so lean. Now we're just going to roll that breast up. These can go into stews as they are, rolled up as a slow cooking piece. You could stuff these, or you could cut them through and put them in with your mince, particularly if you need that fat content, because we do have a bit here. But again, as a little mini roast, these work great in a slow cooker, in some stock. And then we'll do the same again with the other side. Again, laying that meat back from the bone at first. Once we have it laid away, we can get underneath the ribs there, push them along until we have the boneless belly out. Again, we'll remove the gland from the end, keeping any fat that we can. And then we'll roll the breast up. And there we've taken our full venison carcass and made it into very usable cuts. If you want to see any other butchery videos, please do comment. If you have any notes or there's something on here that you'd like to see more of, again, please let me know. If you can like and subscribe, that's just going to help me do more. And again, just to recap, we broke it down into primals. We took the haunches, we took the loins, the shoulders, and the belly and breast, making all of these pieces into really usable product. We're also going to make sure we use those bones for stock, respecting the whole animal, making sure we get everything out of this that we can. For now, I hope you've enjoyed the venison video. If you want to see anything else I do, you can find me on Instagram. I'm Simon the Butch, and my company is Surrey Hills Butchers. Thanks very much for watching.